Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in, and in this video we're going to talk about a very important topic when it comes to migrating to the US, which is how the school system has been set up and what are the tips and tricks that you should be aware of in order to do better and take advantage of the system so you will have better opportunities when you want to transfer or apply to four-year universities. So I believe that the more you know the laws, the more you understand and know the system, the better you can take advantage of it. And at the end, the students, are all numbers. The ACT, SAT, GPA, extracurricular activities, and of course the background story that will make us unique and make us competitive with others in our class. So the more we know the system, the better we can take advantage of doing things in order to put us at this higher category so we are more competitive. That's why I put together this video, because I was heavily at disadvantage. I didn't know people to tell me about these little tips and tricks that exist within the system or how the system works. And I came here completely based on this ideology that I had from Hollywood movies, and it really bit me really hard because everything was so different and I was unaware of a lot of opportunities that exist within the school system, which hopefully this video will at least put you guys not at all of these disadvantages that I've experienced. Now this series probably have to be a three videos that I try to go after, but because I tried to jot down all the notes here and it was just a lot. I don't even know how long this first video is going to be, but I will do my best to end it within 13 minutes. However, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this topic, and there's a lot of these tips and tricks, these needy secrets that you should know in order to put you, or you should know for your sons, your daughters, in order to put them at a disadvantage or advantage. So let's talk about when you get here, or when I got here as a refugee, because we came here as a refugee. You might come here as a someone with different visas for any reasons. I'm not gonna get into that, but the process for us was that we immediately, and I say we, me and my family, we were treated as a mice. We had to take a lot of examinations when it comes to like examining our poop, our urine, our blood, to make sure that we don't bring any diseases with ourselves to this country, or we are basically up to date when it comes to the medical records, and etc, etc. So everything was tested, but what really matters in order for you or your kids to start school is the vaccination. And US is very pro-vaccine when in compared to other countries. So you usually or typically have to take a couple vaccines when you come here. At least in my case, I was always up to date when it came to my record. And coming to the US, I had to take 5 vaccines on top of one that I got when I entered US in order to be qualified to attend high school. So you want to immediately start going after that if you're a parent and watching this video, because what happened to me was horrible, and I hope this is a lesson that basically don't happen to you or your kids. So I didn't know about this. We didn't have a car, nor the people that were around us had kids that attended high school or moved here when they were attending high school. So they didn't know that. They didn't tell us. And then I got stuck into that time frame where I had to take all 5 shots. Yes, 5 shots. Even though I was on top of my vaccines every year in my country, I had to take 5 shots, and I had to take all 5 of them within one session, because again, I was on that timeline. And it immediately caused me to pass out after I had 4 of the vaccines, which was a horrible situation. Really, I still remember it. I had the 4, and then as soon as the nurse injected the 5th one, I just, boom, my head hit the ground because I was standing. And that's something you just don't want to see happen for your kids. So maybe attacking it as soon as possible, or tackling it as soon as possible, and having it in 2 sessions done, that will be perfect. The second factor is that you want to figure out your zip code. Zip code is usually this 5-digit numbers that comes towards the very end of your address, and the county that you live in, or your sponsors lives in, or your temporary house is going to be. Because your schools in the US, which this is very important, I didn't know that your schools in the US depends on the zip code of your house. Like literally your house from your friend's house can be within 5 minutes, within 3 minutes, but because it has a different zip code, your kids have to go to different schools. And these different schools can have different rankings, which can affect your student or your kid. So zip code is very important. You want to figure that out in order to see which school you qualify. I've heard that the Google map is amazing in order to figure out what zip codes goes with what schools. And then on top of that, you want to figure out the county that you are located in, because what you want to do is that on top of taking care of the vaccines, you want to go after the district office of that county, and then basically tells them what do you want to do. Like, you want to enroll your student or your kid in high school or whatever, and what are the steps that they will recommend you to take, or what are the requirements. And usually in my case, and from what I've seen with others, is that they immediately ask for your transcript or records from your own country, and then they try to do their best in order to translate it into the American grades, because for example in my case the grades were very different, or the grading scale, so they will try to start doing that, as well as put you, the student, in 2 tests, placement tests of course. One is English and one is math. The English is usually contains of speaking, reading, writing, and having basically a communication with a person, of course, one of the individuals that are part of the office or one of the examiners. And then on top of that, you have of course the math, which is usually a bunch of questions that you have to answer, and they each carry some sort of weight that will determine your math level. Now, as soon as those are done, you have your papers from there, you have your papers from vaccination, and then you pursue the school that you're trying to go for. Now, we've heard some rumors that, for example, we got here on October, and we've heard that some schools just do not accept students all of a sudden, basically based on a walk-in purposes. And this just never happened to us. As soon as we walked in, they greeted us and they accepted my application. And so that can be the case. Then if it is, you have to do your research. Now after that, let's talk about how the system works after this whole first step is done, which comes to the classes. The classes is a little bit different, and I'm talking about how the classes are set up. Usually in my country, we all had a class. That grade had a class or 2 or 3, and then so for example all the 11th grader were separated into 3 classes, and then they will just stay there and the teachers will change. However, when you come to the US, the teachers have their own classroom, and the students are the ones who have to migrate in between these classes and figure out where they have to go, which is a pretty normal system even when you go to college or 4-year university. So that was the main difference for me, and you usually have 3 periods. Periods, of course, are from the time that your class starts to when it ends. And what's important to notice is that in the US they have a good emphasis on having certain subjects within the student's period, because they just want to have this balance. So usually you have a PE, like no matter what, until you're done with the requirements, which is usually about 2 years in high school. And then of course you always have a math and then again the math is usually the requirement is within the pre-calculus to algebra 2, that you basically need to have it always as part of your plan. And then we have history or science, some sort of, which they also have some sort of requirements, which after you're done, then they basically go away. So you have to take, I believe, a biology, at least in my case, and then a chemistry or a physics. And then when it came to the history, we had to, not the 9th grade, but 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade, we had to take different history classes. U.S. history, government, and I believe world history, if I'm not mistaken. So these, based on your grade, these classes are basically part of your schedule, and you can't run away from them. And now, a very important trick, which nobody told me about, is that all of these subjects that we just mentioned, of course, the teachers matter, right? Just like it's the same scenario when you go to college, but you don't have that much control when you're in high school, all right? Unless you play it somehow that, hey, my son is offended by what this teacher has said, and then, basically make a case in order to make the counselor or the officials to switch your kids' class from one teacher to another. But usually the teachers, as soon as they're assigned to your son's or your daughter's schedule, it just stays the same for the rest of the semester or that term. And then on top of that, what you really want to pay attention of is this very important thing, is that if you believe you're really good at one subject, like let's say usually immigrants are good at math, all right? So for example, you have algebra 1, you have algebra 2, you have calculus, you have pre-calculus, or you have geometry, all right? But then after you hit a certain point, you can take an honor class, which if this is a normal class, then an honor class is a level higher. Then you have an AP class, which is even a level higher than an honor class. So with those classes, you will be putting yourself at advantage. Yes, it's going to be harder. Yes, it's going to have different periods, and sometimes the periods are off in compared to average classes that other students have, but it will definitely pay off when you want to apply for these four-year universities, because then you have those things in your resume, in your transcript, which will glow. How? A, they basically carry that name, they carry that title, they carry that prestige. B, if you're taking AP courses, then it's, and you receive a certain grade towards your final exam, then those credits can be transferred to your college, your four-year university, your two-year university grades. And then on top of that, again, showing in your transcript that you have taken an AP course when you were in high school, it just looks amazing. And on top of that, it can increase your GPA above 4.0. Yes, usually the GPA in the US is within 4.0, but when you take these honor courses or AP courses, you can go even above 4.0, which immediately puts you at advantage. Again, at the end, we are all numbers, right? So that's about that. I didn't know any of this, so I was just like going after basically getting out of this ESL program, because ESL program was basically like a weight attached to me that did not allow me to take all the courses that I had to, that I was supposed to. So I had to take summer courses, I had to take 0 periods, I had to take 7 periods in order to make up for that. So I was in a different path, but for you guys, if you are not in the same path as me and you immediately got out of this ELD program or ESL program, then you want to be aware of these extra opportunities that exist, which will heavily benefit you. Now, we talked about 3 periods and what they usually are, or they force you to be as part of your schedule, but it's also very important to know that if you need those credits because you moved here later than other individuals or those in your grade, then you can aim for what is called, and I've just mentioned it, zero period, which is before the school starts for all the average students. Usually it's a smaller period, 45 minutes, and instead of being every other day, which normally is your classes, usually you have A days and B days. On A days you have 3 periods, for example math, PE, and history, but on B days it's impossible to have the same schedule. You will have something like geography, I don't know, photography, and something else. Alright, and then the next day, again, the A day comes back, so you have your PE and S stuff. But what you can do is that you can have a zero period, which is half of the time that usually your periods are, and then, but it repeats every day. So instead of being 1.5 hours, 1 hour and 20 minutes, it's 45 minutes, and it starts before the school starts. So you have to be a little bit of early bird, but it's all for you to have the opportunity and finish the requirements and graduate from high school, especially if you came late. Now the same scenario applies for the 7th period. However, 7th period usually carries a shady reputation, so it's usually for those who did not do well and need some sort of help in classes, but still it's an amazing way to get all the credits that you're behind. I didn't know any of this until I was senior, and it was way too late, but I still took advantage of them. But I want to tell you guys that you can. Alright, we're almost at that time, so I would refer all these other tips and recommendations that I have, as well as talking about the system and how it works in the next video. So hope you guys follow me, and see you guys in the next one.